Picture this. The power's been out for 4 days. The grocery store shelves were wiped clean within hours. You head to your pantry, feeling confident because you planned ahead. You stocked up on canned meat. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Not everything you grabbed is actually going to help you. Some of it is going to leave you hungrier than before you ate. Some of it is going to drain your water supply faster than you can manage. And some of it is quietly failing you right now, sitting on your shelf, looking useful, doing almost nothing. Most people assume that any canned meat is a smart survival choice. Preppers, homesteaders, everyday families trying to be responsible. They all make the same mistake. They stock quantity without understanding quality. And in a real crisis, that gap in knowledge doesn't just cost you comfort, it costs you energy, focus, and in prolonged emergencies, it can cost you far more than that. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to walk through the 5 canned meats that experienced preppers consistently trust with their lives, break down exactly why each one earns its place in a serious stockpile, and then expose the 3 options you've probably already bought that could be quietly working against you. We'll also cover the storage and rotation habits that determine whether your entire supply actually performs when you need it, or quietly degrades on a shelf until it's too late. By the time this video ends, you'll know precisely what to stock, what to avoid, and how to think about your pantry in a way that most people simply never do, until it's too late to act. Welcome to Crisis Horizon, where we don't do comfort thinking, we do preparation that actually works. If that's the kind of channel you've been looking for, hit like and subscribe right now. We put out content that could genuinely matter when things get serious. Let's get into it. When a real crisis hits, a natural disaster, a prolonged grid failure, a supply chain collapse that stretches from days into weeks, the thing that separates people who stay functional from people who start to fall apart isn't their attitude, it isn't their gear, it isn't even their water supply in the first few days. It's protein, specifically consistent, reliable access to quality protein. And this is a truth that almost never gets discussed directly in preparedness circles because it isn't exciting. It doesn't sell high-tech gear or elaborate systems, it's just biology. Here's what's actually happening in your body during a crisis. Stress hormones are surging. You're probably not sleeping well. You're burning more energy than usual through physical labor, anxiety, and temperature regulation. Your immune system is working harder. Your brain is demanding more fuel than it normally would. And in that environment, carbohydrates and sugars give you a quick spike and then drop you. Fats are slow burning and useful, but they can't carry the load alone. Protein is what preserves your muscle mass. Protein is what keeps your immune system from collapsing. Protein is what gives your brain the steady, consistent fuel it needs to make decisions clearly when the stakes are high. Canned meat isn't glamorous, it never has been, but it fed armies through 2 world wars, it carried families through the Great Depression, it kept people alive through hurricanes, earthquakes, and economic collapses that stripped grocery stores bare within hours. Its track record isn't theoretical, it's historical, proven, and quietly one of the most reliable survival tools ever developed. The problem isn't canned meat itself. The problem is that most people don't know which canned meat actually delivers and which ones are just taking up shelf space while looking responsible. The mistake almost everyone makes is assuming that all canned meat is roughly equal. You grab what's on sale, you grab what looks familiar, you grab the biggest can for the lowest price and tell yourself you've done the work. But many of the most popular canned meats on the market are loaded with fillers, low-quality cuts, excessive additives, and misleading labels that disguise how little actual protein you're getting per serving. In everyday life, that doesn't matter much. In a survival situation where you're relying on those cans for sustained energy and nutrition, it matters enormously. Nutritionally weak canned meat doesn't just fail to help you, it actively works against you. It increases your thirst when water is already limited. It gives you energy crashes when you need steady focus. It depletes your supply faster because you're never actually satiated. Choosing the wrong cans is not a neutral mistake. It has real consequences. So let's talk about what actually works. Canned chicken is not the most exciting item in a survival pantry. It doesn't have the cultural history of Spam or the nutritional mythology surrounding sardines. It's quiet, plain, and often overlooked by people who want their prepping to feel more tactical. But experienced survivalists consistently come back to canned chicken for one simple reason. It performs reliably, predictably, and across a wider range of situations than almost any other option. The first thing that makes canned chicken exceptional in a crisis is its versatility. When you're managing a survival pantry, you're not cooking elaborate meals. You're combining shelf-stable ingredients to create something nutritious and filling. Canned chicken drops into almost anything: rice, pasta, lentils, instant noodles, canned vegetables, and immediately transforms a basic carbohydrate into a balanced, sustaining meal. You're not eating it for pleasure. You're eating it because it keeps your body running, and canned chicken does that without demanding much from you in return. Its digestibility is another factor that gets underestimated until you're actually in a crisis.
When people are under significant stress, and in a genuine emergency everyone is under significant stress, digestive systems become sensitive. Heavy, fatty, or highly processed foods can cause discomfort, bloating, or worse at exactly the moment you can least afford to deal with it. Canned chicken is gentle, it's mild. It works for children, for elderly family members, for anyone who's already dealing with the physical toll of a stressful situation. That matters more than most people realize until they're living it. The lean protein profile of canned chicken also gives you strategic flexibility. Because it's low in fat, you control how you supplement it. You add olive oil when you need caloric density. You pair it with nuts or avocado if you have them. You're not locked into a fat-heavy meal when your body needs something lighter. That kind of control is genuinely valuable when you're managing nutrition across days or weeks with limited resources. And when you're selecting canned chicken, look for low-sodium options in BPA-free cans. Excess sodium increases your water consumption at exactly the time when water management is critical. Smaller, single-serve cans make rationing precise and reduce the risk of waste or spoilage after opening. These aren't minor details. They're the difference between a smart stockpile and a poorly managed one. Canned tuna gets dismissed in a lot of conversations because it's associated with budget dieting and uninspired office lunches. That perception is a mistake. In a survival context, canned tuna is one of the most strategically intelligent foods you can store, and its advantages go well beyond simple protein content. Start with the shelf life. Properly stored canned tuna routinely outlasts its printed date by years. It requires no refrigeration, no preparation, and no cooking. You open it and you eat it. In a situation where fuel for cooking is limited, or where you need to eat quickly and move, that simplicity is not just convenient, it's operationally important. The omega-3 fatty acids in tuna provide a benefit that most survival food guides completely ignore. In a crisis, you are almost certainly sleep-deprived. You are managing anxiety, making high-stakes decisions with incomplete information, and operating under sustained cognitive load. Omega-3s support brain function. They contribute to emotional regulation and help buffer the cognitive effects of sleep deprivation and chronic stress. When you're trying to think clearly in a situation where clear thinking could determine outcomes, that nutritional support is not a luxury, it's a genuine tactical advantage. Tuna also gives you flexibility in how you stock it. Tuna packed in water gives you lean protein with lower sodium, better for water conservation. Tuna packed in oil gives you higher caloric density and additional fat for energy, better for high exertion scenarios or cold environments. Stocking both gives you the ability to adjust your intake based on what your situation actually demands. As for concerns about mercury, in a genuine emergency, trace mercury from reasonable tuna consumption is a distant concern compared to the immediate and pressing need for protein, cognitive support, and sustained energy. You address the crisis in front of you. Spam. Everyone has an opinion about it. Most of those opinions are wrong, at least from a survival perspective. Spam gets mocked for being processed, for being salty, for being unglamorous. But every single one of those characteristics that makes people dismiss it in normal life is exactly what makes it valuable when normal life has stopped functioning. The fat content in Spam is not a liability, it is fuel. In cold environments, in high exertion situations, in scenarios where you are burning significantly more energy than usual, fat is the caloric density that keeps you warm and moving. A single can of Spam delivers substantial calories quickly, without preparation, without cooking, and without any infrastructure whatsoever. You open it and you eat it. You fry it if you have heat. You dice it into whatever else you're making if you want to stretch it. It adapts to your situation rather than demanding that your situation adapt to it. The sodium content, which is often cited as a negative, serves a genuine physiological function in survival conditions. Physical labor causes you to lose electrolytes through sweat. Cramping, fatigue, and impaired muscle function follow electrolyte depletion. The salt in Spam helps replace what you're losing. In a controlled, comfortable environment, high sodium is a health consideration. In an emergency where you're doing hard physical work under stress, it's supporting your body's basic functional needs. And logistically, Spam is hard to beat. One can feeds multiple people across multiple meals when combined with other staples. It requires no refrigeration before opening. Its shelf life extends for years under reasonable storage conditions. It doesn't need to be the center of every meal. It's a flexible ingredient that makes other foods more nutritious and more satisfying. That's exactly what you want from a survival staple. Corned beef doesn't ease you in. It's bold, salty, dense, and unmistakably substantial. And in a crisis, those qualities aren't drawbacks, they're the entire point. When you are doing hard physical work, hauling supplies, reinforcing shelter, managing security, chopping wood, you need food that matches the output. Corned beef is designed for exactly that kind of day. The calorie density is the headline feature. A single serving of canned corned beef delivers protein, fat, and salt in a compact package that keeps you full and fueled for hard work. When you pair it with potatoes, rice, or canned vegetables, it stretches into multiple meals that are genuinely satisfying. Satisfaction matters more than people give it credit for in a survival context.
When appetite disappears under sustained stress, and it often does, you need food with enough flavor and substance to actually motivate you to eat. Corned beef does that. Its strong taste cuts through appetite suppression and gets nutrition into your body when your body is telling you it doesn't want to eat. That's a real advantage. Its shelf life, when stored properly in cool, dry conditions, extends for years. It waits quietly, costs relatively little, and delivers exactly what it promises when you need it. It is not a subtle food. It is not a comfortable food. It is work food, emergency food, get-through-the-day food. And for that specific purpose, it has very few equals. Canned salmon and sardines are the items that separate people who understand long-term survival nutrition from people who are just buying time. Most survival food planning focuses on getting through the first few days or weeks. Canned salmon and sardines are built for the long game, for the scenarios where a crisis extends far beyond what anyone originally anticipated, and where the nutritional gaps that nobody planned for start to show up in real, damaging ways. The omega-3 content mirrors what we discussed with tuna: brain function, emotional regulation, cognitive resilience under sustained stress. But sardines and salmon go further. The bones in canned salmon and sardines, which are soft enough to eat without any preparation, are a significant source of calcium. When dairy disappears from your diet, and in a prolonged crisis it will, calcium deficiency becomes a genuine threat to bone health, joint function, and dental health. Sardines address that deficiency in a way that almost no other shelf-stable food can match. And then there's the overall nutrient density, which for sardines in particular is almost absurd relative to their cost and size. A single small can delivers protein, healthy fats, calcium, vitamin D, vitamin B12, iron, and selenium. You are not just filling a calorie gap, you are actively supporting your body's ability to function, recover, and maintain baseline health under conditions that are systematically degrading it. For the long haul, that nutritional completeness is what keeps you from breaking down slowly in ways you don't notice until significant damage is already done. Now let's talk about what to avoid, or at minimum what to approach with serious caution before you let it take up valuable shelf space in a survival pantry. Canned turkey, on its surface, sounds like a reasonable choice. It's lean, it's familiar, it's marketed as healthy, but the reality of most commercially available canned turkey is that it is overwhelmingly broth, fillers, and gelatin, with a relatively small amount of actual protein content hiding inside. The label might suggest you're getting a solid protein source, but the actual meat content per can often disappoints when you need it most. In a survival context, this creates a compounding problem. You eat a serving expecting to feel sustained, but the protein density isn't there, so you eat more, which depletes your supply faster. The texture of low-quality canned turkey, mushy, stringy, or gelatinous, kills appetite quickly, which means you're fighting both low nutrition and low motivation to eat. The sodium level is often high without the nutritional payoff to justify it, meaning you're increasing your water demand without getting the fuel that would make that trade worthwhile. If you're going to stock any canned turkey, look for products with clear, specific labeling about meat content and minimal filler ingredients. Otherwise, canned chicken consistently outperforms it in every relevant category. Canned ham has a solid reputation that, on close inspection, many products don't actually deserve. The problem with most commercially available canned ham is not the ham itself, it's everything the manufacturer has added to it. Binders, starches, added sugars, and preservatives fill out the product in ways that look fine on a grocery store shelf, but perform poorly under survival conditions. Added sugars in a survival food are a particularly serious issue. Sugar spikes your blood glucose and then drops it rapidly, creating energy crashes at exactly the moment you need sustained, stable energy. In a high-stress, high-exertion environment, that cycle of spike and crash is genuinely dangerous. It impairs decision-making, increases fatigue, and can create a hunger loop where you're eating more than you should to compensate for energy that isn't arriving as expected. The long ingredient lists on many canned ham products are a reliable warning sign. Genuine, high-quality survival protein doesn't need 8 stabilizers and a sweetener to hold itself together. If the label reads like a chemistry experiment, the survival value is probably not worth the shelf space. Gourmet specialty canned meats occupy an interesting and somewhat deceptive space in the prepper market. They look responsible. They come in attractive packaging with premium language, artisanal pork in gravy, wild boar pâté in a tin. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying those things in normal circumstances. But as core survival nutrition, they fail in almost every important dimension. The calorie efficiency is low relative to their cost. You're paying significantly more per calorie for flavor and presentation than you would with any of the reliable staples we've covered. The shelf life of delicate sauces, fine cuts, and complex preparations is often shorter than basic canned meats, which is the exact opposite of what you need from an emergency food supply. And the fat and protein ratios in many gourmet products are not optimized for survival. They're optimized for taste in conditions where you have the luxury of eating for pleasure. In a crisis, you don't have that luxury.
Gourmet specialty canned meats can serve a genuine purpose as occasional morale items, something to break the monotony when everything else feels relentless. But they should never be the foundation of your supply. That position belongs to foods built for function, not for flavor. Having the right canned meats on your shelf is only half of the equation. The other half is managing them correctly, because even the best survival food in the world fails you if it's stored improperly, inspected carelessly, or portioned without strategy. Rotation is the discipline that most people intellectually understand and practically neglect. First in, first out is not complicated as a concept, but it requires consistent execution. Every time you add new cans to your supply, the newest ones go to the back. The oldest ones come to the front and get used first, replaced with fresh stock. This keeps your entire supply within its optimal window of quality and nutrition. Canned meat doesn't expire the way fresh food does. The risk is gradual quality degradation, not sudden spoilage. But quality loss compounds over time, and a pantry full of cans that are several years past their optimal window is not the survival asset it looks like. Can inspection is non-negotiable, both when you're adding to your supply and when you're retrieving something to use. A dented can along the seam or body can compromise the seal. A rusted can may have allowed contamination. A bulging can, no matter how good the brand, no matter how expensive the product, must be discarded immediately. Bulging indicates bacterial activity inside the can, which represents a genuine and serious health risk. In a survival situation, a foodborne illness is not just uncomfortable, it can be incapacitating or worse, particularly when medical care is unavailable or severely limited. The cost of replacing a bad can is trivial. The cost of consuming its contents is not.
No matter how well curated your canned meat selection is, protein alone is not a complete nutritional strategy for extended survival. Your body needs fiber, complex carbohydrates, vitamins, and minerals that canned meat simply doesn't provide in sufficient quantities. Pairing your canned meats with shelf-stable grains like rice and oats, canned legumes like beans and lentils, and canned vegetables creates meals that are genuinely complete. This approach also stretches your supply significantly further. One can of corned beef combined with rice and canned tomatoes feeds more people for longer than the same can eaten alone. Thinking in terms of complete meals rather than individual ingredients is what separates a well-designed survival pantry from a collection of random canned goods. Storage environment has a direct impact on how long your supply remains viable. Cool, dark, and dry are the three non-negotiable requirements. Heat accelerates degradation of both the food and the can itself. Moisture encourages rust, which compromises seals over time. Direct sunlight creates temperature fluctuations that reduce shelf life. A basement, interior closet, or dedicated pantry away from exterior walls provides the most stable environment for long-term storage. Even small, consistent improvements to your storage conditions extend the effective life of your entire supply. Finally, think carefully about portion size when you're selecting which cans to buy. Large cans are economically appealing. They look like better value per ounce, and they often are. But in a survival scenario, every opened can needs to be consumed before it spoils, because refrigeration may not be available. A large can that yields more than you can eat in a single meal creates waste, or worse, creates a food safety risk if half-consumed cans are improperly stored. Keeping a mix of can sizes, larger ones for group meals when full consumption is realistic, smaller ones for individual rationing when waste is a genuine concern, gives you the flexibility to manage your supply precisely regardless of how your situation evolves. The people who stay functional in a genuine crisis are not the ones who panicked and bought whatever was left on the shelf. They're the ones who made deliberate, informed decisions before the emergency arrived, who understood the difference between protein that sustains and protein that disappoints, who stored it correctly, rotated it consistently, and thought about nutrition as a system rather than a list of items. Your pantry is a decision you make today that your future self either benefits from or pays for. Make it count. If this video helped clarify something you weren't sure about or change the way you're thinking about your stockpile, drop a comment below. Tell us what the first change you're making is. It might be exactly what someone else in this community needed to hear. Stay stocked, stay sharp, and we'll see you in the next one.